Hello and welcome to episode number 17 of The Magnetic Life. I'm your host, Emily Elliot, founder of Magnetized Mindset Coaching, and I'm here today with Darius Bashar, who is a celebrated photographer. He works with international celebrities, best-selling authors, and thought leaders such as Seth Godin, Liz Gilbert, Director X, Lisa Nichols, and Masai Ujiri. Sorry, Darius, correct me on how to pronounce that. Ujiri?
Ujiri, yeah.
Yeah, okay. His work has been featured in world-class publications such as Time, Apple, Forbes, USA Today, Oprah.com, and others. I'm just sweating sitting here with you. This is very inspiring. Darius's specialty is working with speakers, authors, and thought leaders on his signature photography experiences, which are HEARTshots in the black and white experience. In June 2022, Darius launched a new photography project called NoStrangers.art, which explores intimacy and connection by taking photos of strangers on the streets of Toronto and asking deep questions. Darius is also the founder of Artist Morning, which is an international community of artists, creators, and meditators. He has led and facilitated over 500 group meditations for thousands of people around the world. You can find Darius on the world's most popular and largest meditation app, Insight Timer. My goodness, I just was gonna say, here's my friend Darius, and look, I'm so impressed.
That totally works too. You know, you could just be like, "Hey, this is D. He's here." I would have been fine with it. But thank you for that intro, and thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, Darius. You are so Darius has been a friend for a number of years, and he is a very, very inspiring human to just witness how he creates in the world. He is a very, very unique, beautiful soul, and we are here today to talk about just that, how to be a creator in this world.
Sounds exciting.
All right. Well, Darius, first off, let me start with a little story. I would consider myself an artist. I think I was born an artist. I would write stories as a child under trees about imaginary plants and animals and enchanted fairies. I would create everywhere I went, in my mind, with my hands. And as I got older, I started to learn society's rules, be structured, be a certain way, follow what other people do. And I started to feel the creator dissolve, like many of us do, until I hit my plateau of having the creativity hammered out of me, which was attending medical school as a naturopathic doctor. And, I had books this big, like 10 books this big on my back all the time. Knowledge, 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 right? Knowledge is the winner. Knowledge is superior. And I actually started to think creativity was not even cool. Like when I would see my partner creating, I'm like, that's annoying. Knowledge is king. And I got to the point where my creator fully disappeared, fully. And only in the last couple of years, I've been coming back to greet her. And I think this is something that a lot of my audience can connect to, is having the creator dissolved, hidden, and squashed. Have you had any similar experience in your path as a creator?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I would say something different. I don't think the creator was squashed. You were just creating something different. It's always the creation. Our lives, our days, our work, we're creating something. Maybe that painting is really dark and gloomy. It's still a painting. So you were just working on different types of artwork and zooming out and not having judgment around it. It's just like, you created some stuff, but maybe that wasn't really what you wanted to create.
That feels true.
Yeah, I have this conversation with people all the time around. I just had this conversation just 30 minutes ago where a gentleman who's getting his PhD, who had been coming to Artist Morning, this community for like kind, creative humans to meditate and journal and connect. And he had said that Artist Morning changed his life because he was 100% convinced he is not an artist. And now just my repetition of reminding him that you're creating an omelet, you're creating a conversation, you're creating a PhD thesis. It's all creativity and expression. And this rigid definition of art is a painting or a musical score, it's like, get out of here with that.
Get out of here.
Yeah, where everything we do is an act of creation. And for me, it's directly connected to why our souls decided to come to this planet, to this human body in this time, was to express something. Yeah.
Let's point out something that's really juicy that you just said. Your art can be in your morning omelet, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why do we forget that? Why do we think that eating, showering, and getting dressed is a quote unquote routine, right? Yeah, so it sounds like you really devote yourself to the micro moments of the day because they are the macro moments.
Yeah, I make a lot of mistakes and I mess up and I forget all the things that I tell people all the time.
You're a human. It's
Yeah.
cool.
And so it's just one of my most impactful creative collaborators, Sal Talon. She helps me with editing and just content creation, like thinking. She said something to me once that forever changed my life. And I was in this like intense creative, sprint of like every day I got to put a post up and there were like 1,000, 2,000 words a day. And like, by day 10, I was like, Sal, I'm out. I don't have anything else to write. And she just said this thing in the way that she says things. And she was just like, how about you just ask yourself what's real and what's accessible in this moment? And then I wrote about having nothing to write about. I'm like, that's the most real thing I could write about. And it connected with a whole bunch of people. But literally every day, as I'm like, one of the early steps of creation for me is like, what's real, what's accessible. It might be a word, it might be a sentence, it might be a scribble, it might be me just yelling. All of those things are creation, and they keep your creative channels open.
What is accessible today?
Yeah. Sometimes I also ask, what's alive? What's alive? What's real? What's accessible? All those questions. And then it brings you like, it is a somatic practice of like coming into your body, like, and feeling. You're like, ooh, okay, there's a little bit of sadness here, a little bit of grief. Do I have compassion and capacity for sadness or grief? And that's why art is so fascinating, because I came from a business world, and business tells men and the world, shut that shit out. Not like, get your heart out of here. Like, stop with the emotions. And then when I left that in my 30s to come into art, and art's like, open your heart, and that's your secret weapon. I got goosebumps saying that. I'm like, what? This is amazing. They reward you for opening your heart and being a super feely human.
Yeah, it's almost like as an artist, the more life you live, the better creator you are, because you're tapping into that like pain, sorrow, deep joy, fear. It's all more raw, right? So
yeah, well said.
As an artist, the more that you are a liver, the more you're going to be a creator.
Yeah. And not the liver in our organs, right? Like, you're not suggesting people be a manifestation of the human liver. That could be cool too.
I mean, okay, you're talking to a science philosophical nerd. So, I mean, in a way, if we are a human liver, our liver is our processor. So if you're a living organ,
I see what you did there.
And you're just
dope.
processing, you're letting emotions flow through you. I mean, I'm okay with being a human liver.
Yeah, I dig it.
So, Darius, is there a certain time of your life where creative blocks can really flare up?
Yeah. When you're coming up against something that's really important and big.
Yes, I
Yeah.
can totally relate.
Resistance will show up when you're about to enter a next chapter,
Mhm,
when you're in the midst of a evolution of some sort.
mhm,
Also, if your creative channels have been closed for a very long time, it's a muscle. And you're like, I'm going to go run a marathon, and then like day
Yeah,
one, I'm going to work out for 3 hours and you're going to be sore.
yeah,
It's a practice. It's like, keeping those channels open, and there's a lot of activities you could do. But if your channels have been closed for
mm,
a very, very long time, and you have these crazy expectations that immediately everything needs to be,
yeah,
at the highest level, you're probably going to have a bit of a rude awakening, as
yeah,
opposed to like slowly, let's just like
that's
slowly
true.
open these channels.
You know, you're really making my brain do the sparkly thing, like here, there, like you're giving me like all these personal thoughts, which I'm sure is happening for people listening too. And back to the story about finishing medicine is Blake would say to me, want to go play? And
Mm.
I would get raging mad. I'd be like, what? And he's like, let's go play. And that just felt so onerous to just be in play, because I hadn't been in play for 5 years. I'd been in my books. That my only reaction was mad. So when we're mad, mad is an onion. It's never the key emotion. There's like onion layers. So I was mad because I didn't feel good enough, because I felt scared, because I felt disconnected from play,
Mm.
right? So what you're saying is insanely powerful, because we forget, like we forgot how to play, we forgot how to create, we forget, but like in our essence we're creators. So it's just one
Yeah.
layer at a time, right? What's
Yeah.
one thing you can access in this moment for play? Do you want to know what mine is? Hula
Please.
hoop. Hula hoop.
You hula hoop and it brings you to play.
Yep. There's something
That-
there in my hips that opens something.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
You know what gets me there? This
Okay, that's
dude.
baby Darius. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
he's reading in the library.
I have pictures of younger Darius all over my house
Hmm.
because I get very serious and get very like future oriented, very like masculine, like we got to have a goal and and then I remember, if I'm doing something new for the first time, any act of creation, I am an 8-year-old, maybe a 5-year-old, and he needs to play.
He needs
He
to.
needs to enjoy the act. He doesn't need to be like, you're 8 years old, you better do this thing in a way that's going to pay the mortgage this month.
Mm-hmm.
No one is going to want to create anything with that energy.
Yeah.
And so just reminding me of him, and that like, what would an 8-year-old need when we're learning podcasting or we're learning photography? He
Yes.
needs to like actually enjoy it and like have very
Yes.
low stakes and just have space to make mistakes and explore.
Mm. Can you like tap in? Like, do you have a leading memory of being a child where you just felt so alive, playful? Like, is there a memory you can kind of dial back to?
Hmm. Yes. And it's interesting because it's a memory with weight,
Wait.
but it's a sad memory,
Hmm.
because I remember I was at an assembly, and young Darius is silly and playful and joyful. And I was I was holding something in the middle of the stage, and I was being a little, I don't know, 6-year-old. And I was like just joking around a little bit. And a teacher came with probably the best of intentions and like scorned me and said, just like, shut up. Nobody wants to see you, hear you. Like, just be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Stop taking up all the space. Probably my interpretation as a 39-year-old now, but it felt like that. She might have just been like, shh, be quiet, you know?
Sure.
And so, yes, I remember being super joyful. And I remember in that moment having an imprint of don't take up too much space. You're not worthy of space. Be
Yes.
quiet. And I remember from that point on, like really taking that to be, yeah, like
Shrinking.
how I should act in the world, shrinking. Yeah.
Shrinking. Yeah. And that kind of circles back. You and I had a little bit of a chat before we jumped on the podcast. And we were talking about like schooling and the dangers of too much order. Like, even as adults, when we fixate on order, like clean house, follow time, it's like, sometimes we are just minimizing the beauty of life with that flow state, like allowing order to dissolve. So it's like, if in our interactions with children in schools, if we could just provide more spaces to just be and flourish and grow and take a little bit of edge off, like order, follow timelines. Like, there's, in my opinion, that is like the number one squasher of creativity, is when there has to be a lot of order.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's over structured. It's over rigid.
Overstructured. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And I would add, maybe later on in, like, if you're trying to make creativity a profitable endeavor, so this isn't for the 8-year-old you, but like as you've, now you're an adolescent, maybe your artist self, as creator self, is a little older, whatever the creation is, structure is a secret weapon. But it's this balance, of
Fusion.
like, you need this, because creativity for me is a very feminine energy. It's flow.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and so it's like you open that gateway to the flow. And if you don't have structure, it just puddles out, because it's infinite. It's got every possibility. You can do everything, every possible thing. It's like,
Well put.
but if
Really
you
well put.
pair it with structure, the right amount of structure, then when you open, it goes in a direction, hopefully a direction in which you're looking for. So that balance is so fundamental. And it's like, you make mistakes, you're like too structured, too flowy. And that's why, like, you want me to get something done, you gotta give me a deadline. Sometimes people think they're so nice. They're like, oh, you're a creative, you're an artist, I don't want to put structures. Or I'm like, no, give me the deadline or else it won't get done. I need some sort of like limitation for me to focus.
Yeah, no. Here's something I tell my clients that usually goes over well. If they're stressed, okay, and they're trying to find that balance between masculine and feminine, I say this: for the next 20 minutes, you're not allowed to stress. The next 20 minutes are devoted to play. And then the subsequent 20 minutes are devoted to the action, the writing, whatever has to get done. So what that does is, by affording yourself the first number of minutes, you can start to access that flow, that yin, that peace, that whatever. But that, like, and it kind of just takes the stress hormones down enough that when you step into the yang, the creation, the container can hold both. And they say, that 20 minutes made me realize, 3 minutes from now, I still don't have to stress. I can still be hearing these leaves, throwing these things, right?
Yeah.
And then in 20 minutes, I know that I'm going to call on that yang, that masculine, that action phase. So that's a beautiful explanation for the container that you just spoke of. So we have the oozy feminine, but then it can be held with, the oozy can be held within some loving walls there, right?
Yeah, the two are meant to be together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you are really, really good as a human at kind of, exemplifying and channeling your divine masculine and your divine feminine. So is there anything else you do to kind of stay tapped into that feminine beauty part of life?
One, thank you. It's nice of you to say that.
Very true.
What do I do to tap into the divine feminine? Yes, so play
Play
is a key one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things, like just all these, just like sage brings me into scents, like I have scents all over. I have bright, colorful things all over. Do you remember the last time I came to your house and
Yeah.
we went to a toy store? Do you remember what I
Yeah.
got?
Did you get a bouncy ball?
A ridiculously colorful bouncy ball that was
Yes.
probably intended for a 5-year-old kid. But
Yes.
in my head, it was just like a reminder of vibrance and
Yes.
flow and play. Um, Other
Mm.
things I do is, honestly, I follow a lot of women. I
Mhm,
follow a
mhm.
lot of like women who are brilliant, who are like radiant, who teach me so much. I also
Mhm.
have a competitive advantage. I grew up in a household of me and like six, seven women, and it was
Wow.
just me. I was the only dude. So like I grew up in a
Wow.
world where like men and women were
Mhm.
definitely not equal, because women were superheroes and men were just humans, because
Mm.
like my mom and my aunt and my grandma and they were doing everything.
Same.
And I was like, man, how do these people do this? Where do they come from? They're definitely different than men, because the men in my life weren't doing anything. And so like I grew up in that environment, which definitely helped,
Mhm.
seeing how incredible women are.
Mhm.
um and then the more time I spend with art,
Mhm.
art is a feminine goddess.
Mhm.
And so I love Liz Gilbert. The way she talks about creativity is like you have to seduce her. You have to be appealing to her. You have to like, if you're always talking about, I'm so busy, I'm so tired, it's like creativity's listening. She's like, I don't think you have time for me because you're always complaining about being so busy. So I'm not so interested. She takes it to the next level and she's like, she gets dressed up and she gets like makeup and she's like, I want to
Mhm.
invite you in. Julia Cameron talks about this too, about going on artist dates and
Mhm.
seeing creativity in art personified. And it's like, where will you take art? Where will you take, if you're going to impress them? Are you just going to be like, hey, let's come over and we'll watch a movie? That's not a great first date. Or is it like, hey, let's go to a record shop, or let's go
Mhm.
to an art gallery, and you're just doing it by yourself. The artist date is just you and yourself and this personified art.
Beautifully put. Beautiful. It's like, how do we treat these sides of ourselves? Like, you know what? You could even take grief on a date. You could take sadness on a date. Take all of it on
Mm-hmm.
a date and get to know it better, right? Because when we look these emotions in the eye, we have the opportunity to really see them and allow them to
Yeah.
move, right?
Yeah. For me,
Yeah.
it was like in my 20s, more business, Darius, like put all the emotions away, focus, masculine, what's the goal, get to the goal, no matter
Yeah.
what, even if you burn yourself out and you hate your life. And that's what happened. I like got there. I'm like, I have all the things and I hate my life.
Yeah.
This is terrible. Like, what did I give up to get to that end? In my
Mm-hmm.
30s, I got humbled, started therapy, got into art. And it was like the paradigm shift to avoid all emotions to each one of these emotions is a color. And if
Mm.
your purpose is to express, you don't want to be like, I don't want to ever have the grief color. I don't want to ever have the sadness color. I only want to paint in joy and happiness. It's like you want access to all of the colors to choose when is the right time to put that particular color into that painting.
Mm-hmm.
You don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be the color. That's a tricky place to be, but you want access to all of them. So there's just
Yeah.
so much more capacity for all of the emotions.
Yes. Oh my goodness. They all have a seat at the table, right? They're all allowed
Yes,
in. They're all allowed in.
all of
And
you, all your parts.
yeah. And how beautiful and how powerful in a culture where we're told, be happy, be good vibes only, be this. It's like, no, we're reigniting the conversation that we are whole beings. And in order to change the world, to create, leave impact, we have to let every single emotion be seen. And the best people in your life are the ones that are going to kind of stay the course and help you navigate all those sides, right?
Mhm.
Friendships, lovers, whatever. It's like we need to be seen as our whole human. And just think, if we could be seen as our whole human everywhere in life, it's so safe to create. It's safe to build a business. It's safe, it's safe, it's safe, right? Because I think sometimes fear holds people back. It's like, oh, well, what if I'm scared? What if I fail? What if? It's like, it'll still be okay. It'll still be okay. It'll still be okay.
I like that voice. I want that Emily voice in my head. It's gonna be okay. It's still gonna be okay. It's still gonna be okay. Can I order that? Is that on your website? Because that would be cool.
I think that's basically my job as a coach is I just keep
Yeah.
reminding people and it'll still be okay, right? Because I mean, here's the thing. We all just need mirrors. That's it. We need mirrors and you're a mirror for people because you're on the artist morning and you're reminding people you're still an artist. You're still an artist, right?
Mhm.
You're still an artist. And so we have like 90% of our thoughts in the day are garbage. That's what we do as humans. And the more we seed the subconscious mind with, you're still an artist, it's going to be okay, we can start to go there on our own, right? But
Mhm.
sometimes we need a helping hand. We need like a Darius, like leading the artist morning. We need to hear his voice on Insight Timer, right? Or someone like me that's like, let's talk about what feels so scary. Let's break it down. And when you have the hand holding, and I use that lightly because I've had coaches be like, I'm not going to hold your hand, blah, 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 blah. And that felt like the wrong coach for me because I believe sometimes we need a hand just to help us with the first few steps. And then the more you go, you kind of can like
Yeah.
gingerly slide the hand away and show people their wings, right? But sometimes when we're bottomed out, I don't need someone giving me like all the toughest love in the world. Like I
Mm.
need to nurture my hurt, scared soul enough that I have the confidence to take the steps, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think when we find these loving guides, right? You're a loving guide. Like even Blake, we had just had a baby and like we hadn't slept. And we both got like 20 minutes to ourselves a day. Do you know what Blake chose? He chose your artist morning. He's like, that's what I want. He's like, that's my cup filler. Like, did you know that?
I
Or did you
didn't
just
know
learn that?
that. No, I just learned it right now.
Right? So here's the
That's
thing.
amazing.
When you're
I gotta
creative,
say, I gotta say, I gotta say, I gotta say,
okay, tell me.
every podcast I've ever been on in my life, that's a lie. But this podcast, I gotta say, I love Blake.
Oh, I love Blake
Such a
too.
special human, and you guys
Mhm.
together is just like.
Oh,
Is
thanks.
this an audio podcast? I didn't even ask you that.
Uh,
Should we?
it's gonna be audio, Spotify, and Apple Podcast, and I'm gonna start a YouTube channel soon. So
Got it. So just for the people listening at home, that was hand explosion because of love
oh,
everywhere.
thanks,
Yes,
Darius.
I love Blake. I love him for many reasons, and one reason is because he got me closer to you too. He brought me
Yeah,
into this
true,
relationship, and it was just a
true.
special. I loved our conversations, all of our conversations, and how
Oh,
real we would all get. And okay, I also loved cuddling your baby. That was really fun.
oh, my baby loves you too. You introduced Koa to your like special beads, and he was like holding your beads and like praying on them or something. It was pretty cute. um, but yes, there's a really, really big point here, which is that if you're an artist like Darius, like myself, you have no clue how many people you're impacting. So you have to keep going, even if you don't know. Because he came on this podcast today not knowing that Blake, as a tired dad with no time, Blake could have done anything. He could
It
have
was
gone on a run.
wild.
He could have
Yeah.
slept. He could have, I don't know, whatever else Blake wants to do, played his guitar. But no, he wanted to be in the loving atmosphere and guidance of Darius's artist morning. So I think that's just a reminder for people. You have no clue your impact. You really don't. And people don't take a lot of time to send compliments and thank yous. I mean, other than Blake and And I'm decent
Like,
at it,
definitely. Yeah.
right? But Darius has probably impacted like thousands and thousands and thousands of lives. And how often do you hear about that?
The impact?
Yeah.
Um, more now than ever before, but for the meditations, probably like because there's reviews on Insight
Yeah.
Timer, so there's probably like it's kind of wild, 20 a day. So I
Good.
get to see
Well,
that,
that's very
which is
good.
cool. But it didn't start there.
It
Yeah,
didn't
like
start.
you're
Okay.
absolutely right. You
Yeah.
don't have a clue.
You don't have a
Sometimes people will message you like years after you did something, never liked anything, like actually hit the like button, never shared, never commented, but they'll jump in a voice note and just be like, I've been watching you for
yeah.
years and you've made this
Yeah.
impact. And you're like, yeah, their impact existed before social media, guys. Just
Yes.
because it's not being tracked by the key metrics doesn't mean we're not making an impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and sometimes almost all the time, we're our own worst critic, and
Mm-hmm.
we're always thinking the opposite of impact, that nobody cares. But
Yeah.
I think they do. I think they do.
I
And I
agree.
think that shouldn't be the primary thing that's getting us to create praise.
Totally.
And it's
Totally.
like, are you loving it? Are you enjoying it? And that's been one of my secret weapons of like,
Mm.
initially
Mm-hmm.
people don't love a lot of the things I do. And I keep doing it
Yeah.
because I'm like, I keep checking in. I'm like, is this real? Does this feel honest? Am I enjoying this? Yeah. And so I think one key mistake that creators make, artists make, business humans make is they set unrealistic timelines.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
And it's like I can't stop thinking about this one thought that just kept going on repeat in my head over the last couple of months, and I've had like a crazy explosion on social media, and this thought
Congrats.
was one of the catalysts for that.
Mm-hmm.
In early June, July, I had this whisper say, most people quit right before things are about to get interesting.
Agreed.
And I couldn't stop thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, I'll start doing posts and 4 or 5 posts, 6, 7 posts. And then you're just kind of like, I didn't get the response I wanted. I didn't get
Yeah.
the validation I needed. And you're like, okay, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to change the course. I'm like, what if you just kept going? If this is true for you and you just kept going, what if like just a couple of days, weeks, months, who knows? Something is about to break through, but you quit right before all that happens.
30
And
feet from
so
gold or whatever. Mm-hmm.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know what? I love your saying this. I feel like this is a big part of my soul right now, too. It's like metrics don't mean much because it's like we feel good once we hit the big number because we know we've been seen a lot. But like when you first start creating, like when I put out my podcast reels, I got like 4 people like it. I'm like, oh, wow, no one cares. But then I'll get many messages on text and email and seeing people in my life and they're all loving it. I'm not even kidding. I was walking down my street last week, said hi to my neighbors. 3 people had my podcast in their ears. They're like, hey, I can't
Come
talk on
on.
listening to your podcast.
That's
I didn't
amazing.
know. Right. So it's like if you're caught up in the metrics right now, just remember there's a lot of bullshit there too. And keep going, keep going. You don't know how many people are receiving your message, right? So stay the course, don't focus on numbers, 20 feet from goals. I'm also laughing because this has been an incredibly fast 40 minutes, but there's 2 questions I really want to engage with you on. What would you say to people who don't feel like they fit society's mold? So that could be like they don't work 9 to 5, or they don't want to get married by like 33.3 and have 2 kids. What would you say to them? Because I think there's a lot of pain there for people that are, if 80% of people follow the course, it's like, oh shit, I'm the 20. This is uncomfortable. So what would you say to them?
That's an unusual question for me because I'm like, is that what people do? There's 9 to 5ers still, and people are doing like, I'm like, what?
So good.
I all I could say is what I believe. I love weirdos. If my life was a book, it would be called like a collection of beautiful weirdos. All my friends, including you, including Blake, you guys are all weird. We're different. I say that as a term of endearment, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you like, so there's weird, and then there's average, normal. Is that what you want to be? You know, like that for me doesn't sound appealing at all. And so it's like finding your tribe, finding your community, finding your partner that's the right type of weird for you is really nice, you know? And
find your weird tribe.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like it's your life. No one's ever lived your life before. Nobody has more experience in your body in the history of humanity than you.
Yeah.
So everyone's just trying to take a best guess, and some of it might be helpful. So take what's helpful, and some of it no longer serves you, and just let that go. And yeah, everyone's trying to do the best they can, but I think it's that like toxic masculine element of like, this is the truth. This is the only truth. If you're not doing this, then you are off. And it's like that's just not it. Like everyone's finding their own path and making their own life. And if something feels off for you, take a moment to question if that's society, your family telling you it's off, or it's like something coming from inside, from your heart saying like, this doesn't feel aligned.
Wonderful message. So wonderful. Find your crew, link up with your weirdos, right? And I like the way you summarize that too. You said there's more than one truth in life, right? So, if, you know, and I work with people every day that are like, I'm behind. And, you know, I don't have this, I haven't achieved this goal. I feel like a loser. And I'm like, no, like what timeline are you following? You're on perfect timing. You're on divine timing. Divine timing has no specific roadmap, right?
Can I say one more thing on that?
Of course.
So I had this conversation yesterday with a friend, and she was like, so I reached 100,000 followers, and according to her, like she was like, oh, your life's gonna be perfect now because everything is good. I'm like, what's changed? Yeah, there's some things that are good, but like it's similar life still. Like that wasn't the end. And she's like, oh, that was like mind blowing to her that didn't mean you are successful all of a sudden. And then I shared with her that I don't think this thing ever goes away. It's like constantly, you know, like, you know, I hit 170,000 on TikTok and it was like, yeah, but that was a fluke. That was a fluke, you know? And then I'm like, I hit 100,000 on Instagram. They're like, wow, maybe you got lucky twice. It's like that voice is constantly there. It's got less steam and energy because now it's like, okay, 2 different times. But the thing that changed my life was I remember hearing Oprah in an interview talking with, I forgot who it was. It was like one of the biggest authors. He wrote some mystical book, and they were reflecting about, and it felt like they forgot they were podcasting or in an interview, and there was just 2 humans talking, and they were saying like, sometimes I feel like I'm just not doing enough. And I like stopped everything, and I'm like, if that voice still exists for Oprah and this insanely successful like author, it's never going away. It's always going to be there, and it's not a gremlin, it's not a demon, it's not evil. It's a protector that's just trying to keep us safe, but is misguided.
And here we are again, back to our, I swear we're going to have to tag Liz Gilbert in this because she's so present in this conversation. But when I read her book, I think, is it called Big Magic?
Big Magic, yeah.
She said something that radically altered the course of my life. She said, anxiety isn't going to go away, but you know what you can do? You can ask your little friend anxiety. I gave my anxiety a name. Their name is Zai. I said, Zai, thanks for all the years in the driver's seat, but I'm going to put you in the back seat now because I'm going to take the driver's seat. So Zai is there, right? But Zai isn't like driving anymore. And so when she gave me that visual, that radically transformed my life because I was making Zai so bad. And think of how tiring that is. go away, anxiety. You're bad. I'm not going to have anxiety. But then when I kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, you can have a seat. Back seat though. I'm calling the shots. So much peace, peaceful coexistence, right? So yeah, that was huge for me. And I can never thank her enough for that image. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness.
I can't wait till she's on your podcast.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That feels so good. She's pretty magical. I'll just hold that in my heart first.
It's gonna happen. If you keep going, it will happen.
Okay.
You mark my words.
Okay. Okay, Darius, final question. You have created something absolutely mesmerizing, jaw-dropping, beautiful. I want to hear from you first, and then I'll share what I think is so cool about it. Tell me about your heart shots.
Sure. Again, thank you. Heart shots, heart shots, heart shots. Heart shots are my response to experiencing headshots, like getting headshots taken and just being like, that did not feel like me. That did not, like, that was in a situation where I felt like the best version of myself. That felt like overly formal and like stiff and like just so quick and so strange. And those photos don't look like me either. Who is that guy?
Who's that?
And so I tried to reimagine what could be possible if we took a totally different approach to portraiture and photography. And it was from the ground up sort of built for authors, speakers, coaches, healers, therapists, people who are heart-centered, who want to use their gifts to impact the world and have a magnetic energy to them when they're in their purpose. But then you bring a camera and that magnetic energy disappears. And I was like, can we capture them in that magnetic energy that like obviously is working for them? And some of them were aspiring, they're just getting started. Some of them, like Liz Gilbert, Dr. Shafali, like much further along. But yeah, it was just like a totally different experience. It ended up being like 4 to 5 hours where we only took photos for 1 hour at the end. So there's a lot of grounding, there's a lot of imagining future you, there's a lot of like, what would it feel like for your dream audience to see these photos? And we cast a wide net and people say like, oh, they'd feel my warmth, they'd feel my playfulness, they'd feel my groundedness, my welcomingness. And there's an infinite amount of answers. And so there's a lot of like talking and manifesting and planning, but it's really, really fun because that's the only way I know how to do it. And then we take some photos in that energy once we've got that roadmap figured out. And it's for people that are like, if my audience could only feel the real me, then they would step in and want to work with me. But it's hard to do that in photos. And so my response was like, hey, heart shots can help.
You nailed it. This is how I would summarize heart shots. Okay. So this is most photos. Who should I be? Who should I be? Who should I be? Who should I be? And when you're with Darius, it's like, you might go in, who should I be? And as you leave, you're like, this is who I am, right?
Yes.
Like you can capture that Care Bear moment where the heart shines out. It's like, this is who I am. Click. So you capture people in their essence, that Care Bear moment where the heart just starts to shine and you're like, got it. And I've witnessed it with hundreds of friends. So that's how I can speak to it.
Thank you.
And
it's a lot of fun.
Oh, wow. So I would tell people to check that out on his website. I'll put it in the show notes. And it's unlike anything else I've ever seen. So if you're thinking of getting photos, invest in it. Like just do it because this is your brand. Your brand is your smile. Your brand is how you carry yourself. I cannot tell you how many services and things I've not bought because the photo, I can't see the person behind the photo. So it's like, you can't even describe what that investment is worth. So check out his website. And as usual, throughout this whole conversation, you already answered questions before I brought them up. So That is Darius's definition of what a magnetic human is with their heart shining forward. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. You are absolutely so cherished, and thank you for sharing your life journey and all your wisdom.
My pleasure. Anytime. I can't wait to hear your podcast with Liz Gilbert. Just make sure you mention that I called it.
Okay, that's a deal.
Awesome.
All right. Love you, Darius. Have a great day.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.